AITA for blocking some family members over expensive Secret Santa lists again. This Secret Santa fiasco has turned into something straight out of a family drama, and honestly, I feel like I'm living in a bad holiday sitcom. For context, my family decided to start a Secret Santa this year. Initially, it seemed like a fun, low-pressure way to spread some holiday cheer without breaking the bank. But what started as a quaint little idea with 10 participants has spiraled into the most convoluted, borderline absurd Christmas tradition I've ever been a part of. It all started with a group text in early November. "Let's do Secret Santa," my cousin suggested, complete with exclamation points and festive emojis. At first, I was on board. I mean, how hard could it be? We'd each draw a name, set a budget, and get a gift. Easy, right? Wrong. We started with 10 participants, just the core family. Then, someone suggested, hey, why not add the spouses? A bit more complicated, but sure, why not? After that, someone else chimed in, let's include the kids. They should feel the joy too. And then, for reasons I still don't understand, random family friends started getting added. By the time the dust settled, we had 20 participants. 20. I've only ever done Secret Santa with maybe 5 or 6 people at work, so this was already feeling excessive. But I figured, okay, the more, the merrier. How naive I was. The first red flag came during the initial round of drawing names. We were all excited, exchanging texts about who we might get. Then, just as we were starting to think about gifts, someone said, wait, we need to set rules. Fair enough. Except the rules kept changing. First, we set a budget. Then, we scrapped it. Then, we decided everyone should make a wish list so their Santa would know exactly what to get. Still manageable. But then, chaos. Someone decided that we should aim for affordable gifts that a kid could buy. Cute in theory, but within hours, people started adding ridiculously expensive items to their lists. I'm talking luxury handbags, designer perfumes, high-end electronics, the kind of stuff that would make a Kardashian raise an eyebrow. And that was just the beginning. The next curveball was the rule that we had to buy at least 5 items from the person's wish list. 5. Not just one thoughtful gift. No, it had to be 5. And there was no budget limit. People started justifying it by saying, well, we don't want anyone to feel shortchanged. But then came the kicker, you had to announce in the group chat how many gifts you were giving so your recipient could make sure they were getting the same number. I'm sorry, what? Isn't the whole point of Secret Santa that it's, a secret? Not in this family. The wishlist editing quickly became another nightmare. People were constantly adding and removing items as if they were curating a personal shopping cart for their dream life. I'd check someone's list, think I had an idea, and then log in the next day to find half the items replaced with new ones. When I pointed out how inconvenient this was, especially for parents who had to buy multiple gifts for multiple people, I was met with the classic line, well, it's for family. We're gritting our teeth for the sake of togetherness. At this point, I was already regretting saying yes to this whole thing, but the final straw came when I got my recipient's wish list. I had been asking for weeks because, by now, it was clear this wasn't your average Secret Santa. When I finally got the list, my jaw hit the floor. It was filled with luxury items I couldn't even pretend to afford, a Dior handbag, a PS5, a bottle of Baccarat Rouge perfume with a note saying, "No dupes," a Dyson Airwrap, a naked cashmere robe, and, get this, a plane ticket to Bali. The cheapest item? A green Amazon Kindle that was still over $200 with tax. I thought this had to be a joke. No one in our family can afford this stuff, maybe with the exception of 2 people, and even then, it would be a stretch. I tried to bring it up gently in the group chat, saying something like, hey, I think some of these wish lists might be getting a little out of hand. Maybe we should revisit the budget. Crickets. No one responded. And no one edited their lists. My own list, by the way, is made up of small, thoughtful items that total about $100. You know, what I thought the spirit of this whole thing was supposed to be about. To make matters worse, some people in the group have openly stated that they plan to buy gifts from lists other than their recipients. So now we've got people breaking the already convoluted rules, which makes me wonder why we even bothered with wish lists in the first place. The whole thing feels like a transactional nightmare with zero room for creativity or surprise. I've been venting about this to my partner, who thinks I should just bow out entirely. Honestly, I'm tempted. But then I think about the fallout. The group chat is already tense, with passive-aggressive comments flying back and forth about who is and isn't following the rules. Dropping out would probably make me the holiday pariah. So here I am, stuck in what has to be the most overcomplicated Secret Santa of all time. I haven't even bought anything yet because I genuinely don't know what to do. Do I stick to the ridiculous wish list and drain my bank account for the sake of family harmony? Do I go rogue and buy something thoughtful but affordable, knowing it will probably be met with disappointment? Or do I just wrap up a bottle of wine and call it a day? Update 1 year later. Hey everyone, back again with another episode of My Family and Their Absolutely Unhinged Christmas Traditions. For anyone unfamiliar with my story, last year I posted about the ridiculous Secret Santa my family held. It was a chaotic mess of unreasonably high expectations, wildly extravagant wishlists, and completely unnecessary drama. If you're new here or need a refresher, let me give you a quick rundown before diving into this year's absolute circus. Last year, we started with 20 participants, a mix of adults and kids, with a wishlist-only rule, meaning you had to buy something from the list your recipient submitted. Deviating from the list was forbidden unless specifically approved, and no budget was set. You can imagine how that went. People were throwing out requests like plane tickets, PS5s, designer bags, and other absurdly expensive items. When it came time for me to shop, I got stuck with Eliza, who had one of those luxury-laden lists. Everything on her list was way out of my budget, so I ended up buying a $60 gift card as a compromise. Let's just say that didn't go over well. Eliza was visibly disappointed when she opened it, and I caught some judgmental looks from the family members who did stick to the over-the-top lists. The whole event was a disaster. Some people followed the rules, others didn't, and tensions were high all around. The aftermath wasn't much better. Eliza complained about her underwhelming gift, and the luxury listers seemed annoyed that not everyone had gone above and beyond. Meanwhile, the rest of us, especially those who didn't have the means to drop hundreds of dollars on gifts, were left feeling frustrated and alienated. I swore to myself that I wouldn't let it get this bad again. This year. Given the fallout from last year, I hoped, things would be different this time around. Surely my family would take the chaos as a sign that we needed to simplify and maybe, I don't know, focus on the spirit of giving instead of treating it like a competitive shopping spree. Boy, was I wrong. In mid-November, Liam, the self-appointed leader of all things Secret Santa, called an emergency meeting in the family group chat. Apparently, he had been thinking about how to improve the process this year. His big idea? Stick to last year's format but pair people based on their donor tier. Essentially, participants would be divided into two groups, luxury donors who could afford the high-end wish lists and budget donors who would be paired with recipients who didn't expect much. On paper, it might sound logical. In practice, it was a logistical nightmare. To make Liam's system work, we'd have to redraw names multiple times until everyone was perfectly matched. If the random draw didn't line up, and let's be real, it wouldn't, we'd have to manually swap names until everyone was satisfied. The process was so unnecessarily convoluted that my head hurt just thinking about it. And, of course, the luxury listers were all for it because it guaranteed they'd get what they wanted. Meanwhile, the rest of us were left scratching our heads, wondering why we couldn't just set a reasonable budget and keep things simple. Some family members, myself included, pushed back. Addison, one of the few sane voices in the group, suggested splitting into two separate Secret Santa groups, one for those who wanted to stick with Liam's absurd format and another for people who preferred a more traditional approach. It seemed like a reasonable compromise. Naturally, Liam took it as a personal attack. He absolutely flipped out in the group chat, accusing Addison of trying to split up the family and blaming me for stirring the pot. According to Liam, everything had been running smoothly before I got involved last year, which was a blatant lie. Addison later confirmed that the drama was even worse before I spoke up, but that didn't stop Liam from painting me as the villain. I tried to stay calm and explain my perspective. I told Liam that I felt hurt by his accusations and that we should have an open conversation about everyone's needs and expectations. I shared that I preferred a more traditional Secret Santa because it was less stressful, more budget-friendly, and allowed for thoughtful, meaningful gifts. Several other family members echoed similar sentiments, citing financial concerns or a desire for a simpler, more joyful holiday experience. When it was Liam's turn to explain his reasoning, he gave nothing. He just kept saying, "It makes more sense this way." That was it. No elaboration, no acknowledgement of other people's concerns. Just vague, dismissive comments. It became increasingly clear that Liam wasn't interested in compromise or even basic empathy. I finally said, "If I didn't know any better, it sounds like you're just trying to hoard gifts." That was the match that lit the powder keg. Liam exploded. He called me emotional, accused me of being a Scrooge and a Grinch, and claimed I was trying to control everyone. He completely ignored the fact that I was just trying to make the process fair and accessible for everyone. To make matters worse, some of the luxury listers chimed in after the fact, texting me privately to say I was out of line for attacking Liam. It was beyond frustrating. At that point, I was completely done. I told the group that if they couldn't see how unreasonable it was to alienate family members who couldn't afford these extravagant lists, I didn't want to participate at all. I said I wouldn't be involved in any capacity, wished them luck, and left the chat. Since then, I've heard through the grapevine that Liam's Secret Santa is still a disaster. The constant re-rolling of names has caused multiple arguments, and some people have quietly dropped out without saying anything. Meanwhile, the luxury listers are reportedly frustrated that their pairings aren't going as planned, and a few family members have started openly questioning Liam's motives. Update 2. About a week after I left the group chat and officially washed my hands of the entire mess, I got a call from Addison. I wasn't sure whether to answer because, honestly, I didn't want to get dragged back into Liam's Secret Santa saga. But curiosity got the better of me, and let me tell you, I'm so glad I picked up. What Addison shared was nothing short of legendary. Apparently, the budget-tier donors, aka the people who were expected to break the bank for luxury wishlists while receiving much more modest gifts in return, had reached their breaking point. Rather than suffer in silence or grudgingly comply with Liam's absurd rules, they decided to stage a full-blown rebellion. Addison, being the wonderful agent of chaos that she is, helped spearhead what can only be described as a Christmas mutiny. The dissidents created a separate group chat called the Reasonable Santa Coalition. Addison was the one who came up with the name, and honestly, it was perfect. The group consisted of everyone who had been fed up with Liam's ridiculous donor tier system but didn't feel like they had a voice in the main chat. Their mission? To reject Liam's rules entirely and restore sanity to the family holiday. They decided that instead of following the over-the-top wishlists, they would exchange thoughtful, handmade, or budget-friendly gifts. The best part? They made a pact to secretly exchange these gifts at the official family gathering, leaving Liam and the luxury listers completely out of the loop. At first, the coalition was small, just a handful of budget-tier donors who were tired of being taken advantage of. But as word spread, their numbers began to grow. Surprisingly, some of the luxury-tier donors wanted in, too. As it turns out, not everyone in the luxury group actually wanted to be there. Some of them felt pressured to go along with Liam's rules out of fear of being judged or ostracized. With the coalition gaining traction, it wasn't long before cracks started to show in Liam's carefully curated system. Things really started to unravel during one of Liam's mandatory name-draw rerolls. By this point, Liam's system was hanging by a thread because every time someone dropped out, it threw the whole balance off, and he'd insist on starting over. During this particular reroll, a coalition member was paired with a luxury lister who had a wish list straight out of a celebrity's dream. The coalition member, who had clearly had enough, outright refused to participate. "I'm not buying anyone a designer purse," they said in the group chat, and the fallout was immediate. The chat exploded. Some people tried to downplay it, while others jumped in to agree. Liam, predictably, tried to regain control by insisting that everyone just follow the rules, but the damage was done. People were finally starting to openly question the entire system. Why were they being forced to spend hundreds of dollars on gifts for people who wouldn't appreciate anything less? Why was there so much emphasis on the wish lists and no room for actual thoughtfulness? Why was Liam the one dictating how Christmas should be celebrated? For the first time, Liam's authority was being challenged, and he did not handle it well. Meanwhile, the Reasonable Santa Coalition was thriving. With every new member, their plans became more elaborate. They decided to organize a secret gift exchange with no wish lists, no tears, and no pressure. Instead of focusing on dollar amounts, they emphasized creativity and thoughtfulness. People started making homemade gifts, like cookies, jams, and knitted scarves. Others found small but meaningful items, like framed family photos or personalized ornaments. It was everything a Secret Santa was supposed to be: fun, simple, and heartfelt. When the day of the official family gathering arrived, the coalition was ready. They had coordinated their own little ceremony to exchange gifts, which they planned to do quietly on the sidelines while Liam's version of Secret Santa played out. As expected, Liam kicked off his extravaganza with the usual theatrics, but it quickly became apparent that not everything was going according to plan. For starters, several of the budget-tier donors had either quietly dropped out or forgotten to bring gifts for their luxury-tier recipients. This led to some painfully awkward moments as luxury listers unwrapped gifts that clearly didn't match their expectations. One luxury lister, who had been anticipating a high-end handbag, received a $5 candle instead. The look on their face was absolutely priceless. Another opened a gift to find a pack of socks, and you could practically hear the indignation radiating from across the room. Meanwhile, the Reasonable Santa Coalition was having the time of their lives. Their gift exchange was full of laughter, hugs, and genuine joy. People were thrilled with their thoughtful presents, and the atmosphere was everything a family Christmas should be. Even some of the luxury listers who had joined the coalition admitted that it was the most fun they'd had in years. As for Liam, well, let's just say he wasn't pleased. It didn't take long for him to realize that something was up. He kept glancing over at the coalition's little gathering, his face growing redder by the minute. At one point, he even tried to confront Addison, demanding to know what was going on. Addison, being the queen that she is, simply smiled and said, "We're just spreading a little Christmas cheer." Update 3. Here's where things took a truly unexpected, and frankly, overdue, turn. The fallout from Liam's disastrous Secret Santa didn't just fizzle out quietly. It erupted into what can only be described as a family-wide intervention. By the time the dust settled from the Reasonable Santa Coalition's rebellion, the sheer absurdity of the situation had reached such epic heights that even the family members who usually stayed out of drama felt compelled to step in. It all began during a casual family dinner hosted by Aunt Carol, someone who is usually the Switzerland of our family conflicts. Liam was noticeably absent, having retreated to lick his wounds after the collapse of his Secret Santa empire. His absence turned out to be a blessing in disguise because, for the first time in a long time, the family could talk openly without his looming presence. What started as harmless chatter about holiday plans turned into an impromptu airing of grievances about Liam's iron grip on Christmas. Aunt Carol, ever the diplomat, kicked things off. Normally, she's the type to smooth over conflicts and encourage everyone to focus on the good, but even she had hit her limit. "I think we can all agree that the spirit of Christmas has been lost here," she said, her tone uncharacteristically sharp. Then, like a dam breaking, she launched into a fiery monologue about how Liam's obsession with control and extravagant gifts had turned the holidays into a nightmare. "If this is what Christmas has become, I don't even want to celebrate it anymore," she said, and her words struck a nerve. At first, there was a tense silence, the kind that makes you wonder if you should get up and start clearing plates just to break the awkwardness. But then, one by one, people began to speak up. And let me tell you, it was like the floodgates opened. Cousin Michael, who rarely says much during family gatherings, admitted that he'd felt immense pressure to keep up with the luxury tier expectations even though it didn't align with his financial situation. Aunt Linda, who has a habit of quietly going along with things, revealed that she'd started dreading Christmas altogether because it had become more about impressing others than spending time together. The most shocking moment came when Eliza, the very same cousin who had been at the center of last year's drama, opened up about her own feelings. She confessed that she didn't even want half the items on her wish list and had only put them there because she felt like she had to keep up appearances. She looked genuinely ashamed as she admitted how embarrassed she was by how materialistic the whole process had become. It was a rare moment of vulnerability from someone who usually exudes confidence, and it seemed to spark a collective realization that the family had gone way off course. But the real game changer came when Liam's own parents spoke up. His dad, who has always been a stoic figure, dropped a bombshell. "We're tired of this," he said plainly. He went on to say that Liam's micromanagement and obsession with creating elaborate rules were driving a wedge between the family. His mom chimed in, saying that the holidays had become more stressful than joyful and that Liam needed to stop acting like he was in charge of Christmas. The kicker. His dad ended with, "You're not Santa Claus, Liam. Stop trying to act like you are." It was brutal, but it was exactly what needed to be said. When word got back to Liam about this informal intervention, he did not take it well. True to form, he sent a barrage of angry texts to the family group chat, accusing everyone of ganging up on him and claiming he was being unfairly targeted. It was the same manipulative, guilt-tripping tactic he'd used in the past, but this time, it didn't work. People either ignored him or sent back polite but firm messages reiterating that the family needed a fresh start. No one was backing down, and for once, Liam found himself on the losing side of the argument. After a few days of radio silence, Liam announced in the group chat that he was done with Secret Santa and would no longer be organizing it. He also said he was taking a step back from family events to focus on himself. It was a dramatic exit, complete with thinly veiled accusations that the family didn't appreciate his hard work. But instead of the uproar he was probably expecting, the reaction was mostly relief. People were just glad the reign of Liam was over.